on the Everyday Engineer. We're breaking stuff. Today, we're going to be tearing down a wall. So I'm here at my sister's place, and we're going to be taking this whole wall down, hood, cabinets. We're going to be leaving this cabinet here for right now, moving an electrical box, and setting up some wires for future installations. This one controls a light out there and a light in here. Eventually, we're going to be putting some different lights in. Already had the stove moved. She called a plumber for that. So, without further ado, let's start deconstructing. Second floor a little bit, and that's why I think this was put in before the ceiling.
What?
Yeah, so I think the wall was put in before the ceiling because the ceiling goes above the wall.
Well, don't forget, it might drop. It might be a drop ceiling because that's how it is in the one ceiling upstairs in the bedroom.
It could be
because the glue on is probably about half an inch thick.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can tell how dated it is by that wallpaper. So who knows what they did back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Hey, who knows? You might get an extra like 5 or 6 inches out of height in your
I was thinking
in
that
your
before
kitchen.
when I saw that.
All right, so we've got a lot of drywall. One of the outlets removed. I just want to make sure this isn't a load-bearing wall before we go cutting through it. And for me to determine it, because we've already determined that it's not a load-bearing ball, but I want to double check for sanity's sake. What you could do is you take a reciprocating saw or any saw, and you just take it at now, don't do this to start with, but if you're 99% sure and you want to double check, start sawing at it. If the blade gets pinched halfway through, stop what you're doing. It's a load-bearing wall. Nope.
Why would that be if it was a load-bearing wall?
Well, because what happens if it's a load-bearing wall is you've got the load that's being transferred from your joists or your attic or your roof, or depending on how your structure is set up. And what that does is each point puts pressure on the top. I think that's called, no, that's not the cell plate. The plate, and then each vertical stud will take the full weight of, well, not the full weight, but a portion of that weight. So if this is load bearing, what happens is instead of just its own weight that it's supporting, it's also supporting the weight of the structure above it. So you've got this vertical force down, and if it's enough of a vertical force, it'll stop a battery powered reciprocating saw or a even a corded reciprocating saw. It'll stop, it'll pinch it, and some people just push through that, but if you could get through it with butter, it's not a load bearing structure. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have one stud that isn't not bearing a load in a load bearing wall, like say they cut it short. That could also happen, so you have to watch out for that as well.
But don't try to use butter because it won't work.
I'm sure if you heat it up enough, you could burn through it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like a butter plasma gun. I went and disconnected this outlet, and it's a 70s outlet, which we found out runs to the hood. That's it. So she wants to get rid of the hood. Stove's moved, so I believe that's just going to be gone. So I can get rid of this wire altogether. This wire will keep because that's what runs to the junction box in the basement. unless it runs to a GFCI. Either way, we're going to keep it. That way I don't have to go searching throughout the entire house to figure out where it goes. We'll probably just terminate it. I might run it over there. That way, if we want to run the fridge or something. But in order to disconnect it, all you have to do is unscrew all the terminals. And if they're connected, you just unscrew it. And with old wiring like this, you might need a set of pliers in order to unwrap them. Make sure it's disconnected. You could get a multimeter to check, or you could use one of those live power testers if you want to check as well. That way you can tell that what you're working on isn't live. If you're just switching or moving electrical, you don't need an electrician to get you a permit. If you're adding electrical, so if you're adding switches, outlets, you'll want to check your building codes. Some areas do, some don't, and your local ones supersede your state and federal. So just look into that. But you'll disconnect your wires, white and white, red and black. And depending on if this is a GFCI, which are the ones with the test and resets, you'll want to make sure you keep the lines together, and you'll tell if it's a line based on the back of the box. It'll say line or load. Keep the lines together, keep the loads together. And you can just wire nut them using these, and on the back of this little bag, it tells you what size wire nuts to use based on the wire. And you can tell what kind of wire. It's printed on the wire, and at least in America it is. So you can read that and figure out your wire, use the wire nuts, depending on how many wires. Some are rated for 212, 312, but you can do that, and once you get the box out, just wire nut it all together. And then, if you need to, once there's no loose connections, you could turn your power back on if you need light or something, if you need this in a quick fix. But if you don't, I would suggest leaving the power off until you get everything set up in your new situation. Man. They don't build it like they did in the 70s, man. Those workout videos must have done a.
That's why everybody was so skinny.
That's why everyone was buff in the 70s. You know, the workout videos and. But anyway, just undo the wires, connect them up line to line, load to load, black to black, white to white, and that acts as sort of like a continuous wire then until you put in your new connection, whether it be an outlet or a switch. If it's a switch, it'll consider it continuously on. If it's an outlet, it'll just run the power straight through, so you won't be able to access it, but it's not like it's going to do any harm to your system. And make sure you're using the proper rated outlet for the wires. So if you've got 20 amp wires, use 20 amp outlets. 15 amp outlets, 15 amp wires. So while she's doing the electrical de-installation, I'm going to be uninstalling these cabinets. Now, depending on when your cabinets were installed, most of them generally have a few screws along the bottom, sometimes in the top. It's just a matter of figuring out where all the screws are, popping them out, and then the cabinets should come off the walls. Now, it also depends. Some people like to construction adhesive their cabinets to the walls, so I don't know if that's what we're working with here. Either way, this wall's coming off, so that won't be an issue because we're taking the wall down too. So. Was on top. They what the hell? That's good though. It doesn't look like there's any ductwork up in your bulkheads. At least not this one. I don't know about on the other side of the kitchen, but that'll be nice because then you can remove the bulkhead.
Nice. Alright, now to workout.
So we opened up the ceiling and it looks like there's a second ceiling.
Actually, I think this is part of the board.
Oh, is it part of the board?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's not interesting then.
We'll just delete that.
I'll just keep it in, but still. But and nice bright red floors that were originally there. Furring strips. Only 1x3s up there. Take that out. Get some nice insulation for that rustic feel. Probably end up having to bring the bulkhead out. You know, plans end up changing as you get into it. Yeah, so gotta remove the footer plate and then redo the wiring. So we've got the boxes hung, all taken out. I'm leaving her on her own to finish it up because I'm exhausted. Drywall all beat to hell because this house is old. But just be careful if you're working with electricity. Make sure it's turned off. Be safe. Thanks for watching.